Welcome to the Devy Debate. All right, boys, are we ready to debate? Bruning, are you ready to go head-to-head with me?
I am. Gotta get my popcorn out here. Hold on.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I'm Felix Sharp. I know you didn't think that we would get through this episode without mentioning the name one Zach F. Wilson.
It is first and goal. Ball spotted just inside the 10. Algier in. Wilson faked it to him and keeps it. Zach Wilson, the speed, and he dives for the end zone. Touchdown.
That's Austin Nace.
Gibbs, who is probably going to be the best pass catcher out of the three. Now.
First down, he's going to get after it again. And look at the speed and the spark and the score from Gibbs. Just what Georgia Tech needed.
That's Matt Bruning.
G. Scott Jr. Obviously, I waxed poetic about him on the last episode, so I won't do that again here.
And it's Thomas Fields on the carry. Watch out! Justin Fields! Hello! Columbus, 51 yards!
Austin, you tweeted something, girl. You tweeted your running back rankings. Explain yourself.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Ohio State fan talking there.
Oh, shit.
That is why you come to the Devy Debate. Apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. We ran out of time. We'll get him rescheduled soon. And for Matt Bruning and Austin Nace, I'm Felix Sharp. Good night and good luck.
It's 9:30 Eastern, the only time zone with a committable offer. On a 5-star version of the Devy Debate, we have official visits from Katie Flower of Under the Helmet and Allen Trieu of 247 Sports. I'm your bagman, Alfred Fernandez of Why Wait Till Sunday, and we have taken over the Devy Debate for the evening. Tonight's agenda includes answering the question of who is the number one wide receiver in the 2022 class. We ask Rondell Moore or Jamar Chase, and what should we make of the Kyle McCord sandwich situation at Ohio State? But first, we start with Eric Gilbert entering the transfer portal once again. Gilbert, of course, the best TE recruit in 247 rankings history, committed and played for LSU this season, finishing second in receiving yards, I believe. Left the program citing a need to be closer to home, and he's from Georgia, so of course many people thought he would wind up at UGA. But then committed to Florida, and now once again back in the transfer portal. So I throw it to you, Katie Flower, diva of Devy. How much has Gilbert's value been affected in the Devy and C2C formats after all this fiasco we've got going on?
First thing I want to say is he says that he committed to Florida because he wanted to be closer to home. It's a 1 hour, 35-minute flight from Baton Rouge. It's 1 hour, 10-minute flight from where Florida plays. So unless you're going to drive, it's really not closer. And there's a whole bunch of things about his grades. I think it's going to affect more his C2C value than it will his Devy value, because the NFL really doesn't care if you're a college graduate. 3 years out of high school, you can apply to be in the NFL. So he's already got 1 year under his belt. Let's say that he ends up not getting the grades and has to go to JUCO or whatever, some other circuitous route to the NFL. He can still make it big in the NFL without even playing for a big-time school from here on out. So I think his Devy value, because of his skill set, will hold, but his C2C value for sure will take a hit.
Oh, sorry. Alan, any thought? I mean, I'm Felix for the evening, so of course I had to mute myself. Alan, any thoughts on that, his value?
Well, he's such a talented guy coming out that I think there has to be value just because there's so much upside with the guy. There was a reason that he was the highest ranked tight end recruit in history on 24/7 Sports. And this is with guys like O.J. Howard, who I remember seeing in high school and were just freaks coming out. But there's a reason Eric Gilbert was put up that high. He has exceptionally high ceiling. So I think, you're waiting to see what shakes out with him. You're wondering if there's other things going on that may keep him from reaching that ceiling, but certainly talent-wise, there's no question.
Yeah, I think if I threw my 2 cents in, it would just be this just feels like there's things other than what we know, and the talent, the athleticism is clearly there. But anyway, yeah, I'm not sure what to do with him. I've taken him in some mocks. I don't have any actual, shares of Eric Gilbert right now. So I'm waiting to see. I mean, I guess we'll see what team he lands on. But Allen, should Michael Mayer, or is there another player who should be considered the TE1 for the 2023 class now, in your opinion?
I think he's clearly the number one guy, and he's established that after what he did as a freshman. We just talked about Gilbert being so highly ranked. Michael Mayer was not that far behind him. He was also a 5-star. He was the number 2 tight end coming out of that year. And when you look at the rest of the top national tight end board, there's questions all over the place, from Gilbert on down to, Jalen Conyers transferred. Malik Carr is really playing more like a big wide receiver. So when you talk about tight ends in that class, Michael Mayer, after 1 year, is undoubtedly the guy. I know if we're talking redshirt freshman, I think Isaac Rex at BYU deserves to be mentioned. Had a really, really good redshirt freshman year for them. He'd probably be the next guy in that group. But I think Michael Mayer, you wouldn't get a lot of debate for anybody around the country that he's clearly the number one guy.
Katie, agree, or is there another guy?
Well, the thing is with Devy, unless you're playing C2C, with Devy, the hit rate on tight ends is really, really low, about 12%. And then not only that, even if you hit on a tight end, it still takes a long time for them in the NFL to become fantasy relevant. I fade the position, so I don't totally scout it. Even in tight end premium, unless it's start 2 tight ends, and then I still try to favor the guys that are closer to coming out rather than the guys that are 3 or 4 years from coming out. But
yeah, I definitely think tight end is certainly a position where I'm going to wait and see production on the field rather than trust a whole lot in terms of prospect rankings, I think. So I'm with you there. I'd like to take this moment to remind everyone we are doing a giveaway, $50 DraftKings gift card. You can use it for NBA. You can also hold it for college football and get a winning lineup from Why Wait Till Sunday podcast. So just a little plug right there. But you have 3 requirements to get entered. You have to leave a 5-star review for this Devy Debate podcast right here on the Apple Podcasts. If you've already left a review, that is met requirement. And then you still have to sign up for a yearly premium membership at the newly minted campus2canton.com. We're very excited about that site. And got tons and tons of things ready to come at you with that membership. DM a screenshot of your review and receipt to Sharp Review on Twitter. That's at Sharp Review with an E, review. And then first 15 new subscribers to the website will be eligible for a $50 DraftKings gift certificate, which covers the subscription. Plus, you can turn it into even more by winning a Millie Maker. So let's get into something that I think we're all very excited about, being C2C players. Allen working for a recruiting website. The 2021 freshmen. Who are you dying to grab in Devy drafts? Who's one freshman you think can pop right out of the gate week 1 and hopefully a fairly normal offseason leading up to a fairly normal season in 2021? Allen, you're up first. Go.
So it set off the radar, right? So I was trying to go a little bit more deep into the less obvious choices. So my guy was Baron Morton at Texas Tech. A couple of reasons for this. I mean, obviously he's going to go to a system where they're going to throw the football all over the place, but they don't have much coming back in that quarterback room. Alan Bowman transferred out. I think the only returning guy that really averaged any yardage is Henry Columbi. And in Baron Morton, they have a 4-star composite guy coming in. He was an Elite 11 selection. And over the years, Texas Tech has put up some great numbers with guys who weren't necessarily top end recruits. Even Patrick Mahomes, the recruiting sites get picked on all the time for missing his rating, but traditionally Texas Tech doesn't recruit Elite 11 4-star type guys. They got a guy in Baron Morton coming in. I think he's going to have some adjustment to the college game because he didn't play top level ball in the state of Texas coming out. But when you look at situation, if you're looking for a deeper kind of guy, when you look at the situation he's entering, not much in front of him, plus the system he's going to, I think that's a guy that kind of fits the mold of what I was looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, certainly playing time, I think, is there. Do you know offhand? I don't. If he's an early enrollee?
I believe he did enroll.
Usually the quarterbacks are doing that pretty frequently these days. So yeah, I mean, he gets on campus already, and yeah, the depth chart right there is wide open. Let me ask you this: I have looked at him actually. I looked at some of his Elite 11 throws and things like that. He just seems, and you said it might take him a minute to get acclimated to the college game. It seems like he's a very long, lanky player. His movements seem kind of just exaggerated. These big, kind of a big windup. There's one particular drop back that I like. His base was so wide with these giant legs. He looked like a giraffe back there throwing the football. So, how do you think that are his mechanics a problem? Do you need to tighten that up in what you've seen?
Yeah, I think, mechanically he's not perfect, but he gets the ball to where it needs to go. Arm strength is not a question. I do think physical stature is probably the biggest question. Is he going to be able to be physically ready to take the pounding for as many dropbacks as he? That's probably a bigger question for me, and then just adjusting to those windows closing up a little bit faster than he's used to. But I do have him we did confirm, by the way, that he is an early enrollee. So they're probably throwing the weight on him. One thing about him too that I don't know if it came across in those clips, he's a really good athlete. He can run. That's verified, his shuttle times, and ran a lot in high school. So I think that's going to help him a little bit there too. But I agree, he's not perfect, but I think that, like I said, over the years, Texas Tech hasn't recruited those ready-made type quarterbacks, and those guys put up a ton of yardage.
Yeah, it's certainly got to be exciting for them to have what might be one of the highest rated quarterbacks out of the gate, and so hopefully if he can develop, that'll be pretty nice. Katie, what is your, I guess it's kind of a sleeper pick, but a freshman you just really want and you think it's gonna pop?
All right. So first off, I'm not ready to die, so I'm not dying for any freshmen. And also the caveat that I do not play C2C leagues. If it was ever hosted all on MFL, then I would absolutely 100% love that and get into it. I think that I'd end up being pretty good at it. But somebody that you can get in Devy, and I think you can get him cheaper because he's not necessarily considered the number one running back in the class. But I go for running backs in Devy, especially the further ones out, because they've got about a 35% hit rate if you nail their profile. And when it comes to 247 rankings, being a 5-star or a 4-star means more as a running back to the NFL correlation, more so than quarterback, more so than wide receiver, and to some extent, even the tight end position. Although 5-star tight ends typically do not miss. They may not be prolific fantasy guys because they're more of a blocking tight end, but they still make a good NFL career. And that's what the rankings are for. They're not for dynasty fantasy football purposes by any means. That all being said, I really love freshman LJ Johnson. He's from Texas, from the Houston area Cy-Fair. They've been a running back factory since the 1930s, and they do the ground and pound consistently. He's 5'10", 204 pounds, which is a good starting spot. I don't like my running backs that are freshmen to be 160, 170 pounds. To think, NFL, a good weight as a bell cow running back in the NFL, 215, 220 plus. And at 204, he's got the frame where he could put on easily 10, 15 pounds and hit that. And I think that's his ceiling. I think he could be a 3-down running back in the NFL. I think he's a carry the load type of guy. I think he's going to be an early round NFL draft pick. He's going to sit a year behind Isaiah Spiller. They've got a pretty deep depth chart, but he's the only one. Anais Smith is more of the pass catching back. LJ Johnson, and by the way, he's going to Texas A&M. I forgot to say that, but he is going to Texas A&M after looking at a lot of large schools, including LSU and Texas, but he wanted to stay in Texas and went to Texas A&M instead. He's going to get to learn from Isaiah Spiller, who I think is an outstanding back who has one more year. And, he could see some carries early enough to show some flashes. He's a two-way guy. He played some defense, so he's a two-way player. and he's also a two-sport athlete. So all of those reasons, even though the rest of the guys that are on the team, there's a lot of running backs, I think they're all kind of average Joes, and he will shine.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with all of that, actually. I think Smith may wind up being a little bit more of a slot guy next year now that they'll have that nice B back in LJ Johnson. And then some people really like Achane, I think it is, but he's a smaller guy. I think he's sub 200 pounds.
Yeah, 5'9", 185.
Right. I think that LJ Johnson looks much bigger than 204. When you're watching his tape, he runs much bigger than 204. I was surprised. I thought he was going to be like a 220 type guy already. And maybe that number isn't quite right. Who knows if they're super accurate all the time, but he looks like that guy who's going to be 220 by the time he gets to the NFL. I was a little concerned with his long speed. That's not the end of the world, but if I'm trying to think of true elite upside, I do want a guy who could break off 80 yards if necessary.
He was verified 4.42 out of
I know.
I've heard a lot of guys in high school, like Saquon Barkley was 4.6 something and at 195 pounds. So a lot of times your 40 time in high school really doesn't mean jack compared to how much weight you put on and then how much strength that you gain by the time that you make it to the NFL Combine. Totally, totally different. I'm not worried. I think he's got plenty of speed. He's a hardworking guy. He's got plenty of functional strength. He's got good vision. I think he's got big playability.
Yeah, I mean,
34-inch vertical too, by the way. Which
how much?
Junior year of high school, 34-inch vertical. Wow. Verified. Yeah. So that's some explosiveness at 205 pounds to be able to get up like that at your junior year of high school.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I was shocked at that 4.4 time because he just doesn't look like that on what I've seen, but obviously it's there in a straight line.
But then again, you're watching Texas high school football, which is like most people's college.
That's true.
I'm kidding.
No, that's not a false statement. I'm very curious. I'd like to get both of your thoughts on these two guys that I've fallen kind of head over heels for. 2 3-star running backs. Katie, I know that's probably not a great hit rate. You just went through some of your work on star rating translating to the NFL, but I think one of these 247 nailed. And Allen can maybe speak to that. But Devin Neal headed to Kansas. I was just going through all the 3-star composite running backs, flipping on their film. And, I think when you get down into the 3 stars, for me, it's like you can tell within the first 15 seconds if you want to watch the rest, because some of them just pop right away and some of them are just in the bucket of every other 3-star. Devin Neal, he just seems to have everything you want. He's I would not think it's hyperbole say an elite receiver out of the backfield. I mean, his tape has toe touch grabs. His tape has a mossing of a defender in the end zone. His tape has slants near the goal line where he's creating separation on a quick slant. I mean, guys, you do not see that. And he's 5'11", 208. He's even bigger than LJ Johnson, if that number is correct. So I will let you guys take over, but I love Devin Neal. He's a running back 21 in the composite, but 247's higher on him at running back 12, which I think is about closer to what it should be, maybe even higher for me personally. I'm in love. I know he's a baseball player. Is that a problem? Did that water down his ranking, Allen?
No, actually, that improved it. Over the years, we found that if you're a multi-sport guy in high school and you're not just out there in those other sports, you're actually a prospect in those sports. A lot of the time, that really translates. I mean, try to find a guy in the NFL who plays a skill position who wasn't good at something else in high school, basketball, track, what have you, baseball. And so, we agree with what you said. I think a lot of people, one of the misconceptions about the rankings is that we just go up and down the list and say, well, this guy's going to Bama, this guy's going to Clemson, this guy's going to Ohio State. Let's just put him up there. But as we were digging through the list, we were going, this guy going to Kansas is really good. And a lot of the things that you said, the baseball player stuff translates to when you see him catch the ball and adjust to passes and change directions and do all of those things. And so I'm right on board with you. I think he's going to a great situation as well. I mean, he could have picked a lot of other schools and sat behind some other guys and maybe had to fight it out for time a little more. I think he's stepping into a situation where, there could be several years where he's the lead back, feature back there with Kansas.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited.
I was just going to add, running backs can hit from anywhere. Just because they do hit at a higher rate at the 5-star, there's still plenty of guys that can hit from anywhere. And you look at a lot of guys in the NFL, undrafted free agents and post round 4 and beyond, they still are an injury away. If they get the right opportunity, their skill set will separate them. And I'm very much looking forward to Devin Neal. I've heard through the grapevine in one of my Devy chat groups that the coaches think he's a really hardworking guy. I like that. We can't ever see too much inside the brain or inside the heart in these rankings. And I agree with Allen. I've talked to a lot of pro baseball and pro football scouts, and anybody that's a multiple sport athlete, they love that, because when you finally focus on the one sport, your growth is going to be better. Some of these guys are stagnant. They've been going to camps. They're at their peak. Whereas other guys, the guys that are multiple sport athletes, they have more room to grow and potential, and they like the clay. They like somebody that can get there in their mind.
All right. Well, you guys.
I'd like to bring up too is that, you found a guy here where the composite was a 3, which if people watching don't know what the composite is, that's an average between the 3 sites, a composite of ESPN's rating, our rating, and 24/7 and Rivals' rating. And sometimes if a guy is a 3-star composite, it meant all 3 sites thought that guy was a 3-star. But then there's going to be cases where there's an outlier there. And I think looking for a guy who is an outlier, a composite 3, but one of the sites, and I'm not saying just us, one of the sites had him as a 4, had him a lot higher than everyone else. A lot of the time that means that organization found something on that kid that maybe the others didn't. And so that's maybe something to look for when you're scrolling through those composite 3-stars is see if there was somebody who was jacking up that composite rating or maybe bringing it way down where the other 2 were higher.
Yeah, it's a great point. I've actually thought, it just takes a lot of time to manually do it, but I've actually thought of coming up with a table of like the plus and minus, who was the highest on a certain player relative to the composite, and kind of finding outliers like that. Exactly what you said. I'm very excited about Devin Neal. And I want to get your opinion, because this is another one where it sounds like some people are on Devin Neal, but I found a guy who I think maybe I might be the only person who looked at this guy and was impressed. But Austin, who's a typical host for this show, looked at the tape as well and was impressed. So we have 2 people. Gabe Ervin heading to Nebraska. He's a running back 35 in the composite. 247's running back 86. So 247's like way off the radar. He's going to a depth chart with only Marquise Stepp, transfer from USC, left on the Nebraska depth chart after Wandale transferred, and I think Dedrick Mills is gone. So the depth chart's great. He's from a 6A team in Georgia, Buford, which is a great high school, produces a lot of talent. And the tape, to me, really pops all around back. There's multiple instances of him catching passes out in front of his body with his hands. Looks like the speed is there, at least to be, to me, as good as LJ Johnson type speed. Maybe not a track star, but very good. Contact balance. I saw a lot of nice things. Allen, what are you saying in the war room over there at 247 about Gabe Ervin to get him running back 86?
You know what? I wish I had a better answer for you. He's down in Georgia, and I handle a lot more of the Midwest, and he kind of got ranked before I stepped in and did more of the national stuff. And so I don't have I kind of looked through his profile here to see if there was something that stood out as far as why we would have been a little bit lower on him. But like you said, Buford, extremely notable program. Tried to see if maybe did he share the ball? Was there lack of production? But he rushed for 1,200 yards as a junior. Ran for a bunch of yards in their playoff run as a senior. So I'm honestly not that maybe he was under recruited for some reason. But I saw he had an offer from Michigan, a couple other schools on there. So it doesn't seem like, he kind of fits to the profile more of a guy who should have been ranked higher based on just these numbers. So my only guess is that somebody on our staff saw him in person and what they saw didn't match up to the numbers on the offer list.
Fair enough. Katie, have you I mean, yeah, you're not C2C, so it might be a little too deep for Devy to guide that far down the list.
I looked at him because I saw that you had written him on the show sheet, and I watched about 15 seconds of him. And so I would have to say I've got to watch more. He looks all right.
Fair enough.
But I would watch more.
I mean, I was probably like, clicking huddle highlights at like 12:30 at night or something. But no, I've watched him a couple times since, because I was like, how can I have found this person? But, and who knows what'll happen. But I was pretty impressed. And, he will have a chance at Nebraska. I mean, day one, he's an early enrollee. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential there, I think, for Gabe Ervin. Katie, so you already touched on this, your 5-star findings for running backs. Quarterbacks seem to be a little bit less maybe correlated with that top end rating. Do you have either one of you, because Allen, you're obviously in the process of ranking these guys. Katie, you've done the research. Why do you think that is? Why are running backs seemingly easier to target at a better rate, that it carries all the way to the NFL? And I would say anecdotally, I feel like receivers also rating really is going to matter for the next level. Those 3-star guys just don't quite seem to pop the same way.
Mike Evans is a 3-star. Devontae Adams is a 3-star. Michael Thomas is a 3-star. A lot of the guys in our top dynasty right now are 3-star wide receivers. So you cannot say that. I disagree.
I retract it. So tell me about why running backs. Why do you think they are the ones that it holds?
I think it's the easiest position to scout. I think that it's the easiest position that if you've got the vision and the wiggle and everything, you can tell that from an early age, and you can see that. And scheme doesn't matter. Team doesn't matter. The quarterback doesn't matter. Yes, blocking matters, but a guy that is good is going to get his. And it's just funny because I'm going to quiz you guys a little bit, and you may know a lot of these answers, Allen, and some of these may be shocking, but we want to talk about the quarterback position and how 5 stars really don't matter. Since 2002 recruiting season, there's only been 5 quarterbacks that were the recruitment number 1 coming into college that went on to be a round 1 NFL quarterback, and only 2 of them at number 1 overall in the NFL. In the 2002 class was Vince Young, 2005 was Mark Sanchez, 2006 Matt Stafford, 2012 Jameis Winston, and 2015 Josh Rosen. So this year, if Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 quarterback taken off the board, which he is presumably going to be, he will be the 6th and the 3rd ever to be the top guy. And if Justin Fields is the number 2, that's the first time I've ever seen the top 2 guys coming out of high school end up being the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. And so here's the quiz for you guys. In the year that Patrick Mahomes was a recruit, the 2014 year, who was the number 1 recruit at quarterback when Patrick Mahomes, 3-star Patrick Mahomes going to Texas Tech, who was number 1 in 2014?
That's a great question.
And I'm putting you on the spot, so no worries if you don't get the answer.
Can you tell me where that player?
Yeah, can you tell me the college?
He went to Texas A&M.
Then.
And he ended up a UDFA in the NFL. He was an undrafted free agent. He was number 1 overall.
Is it
Kyle Allen?
Yes. Yes, Kyle Allen, the guy that was just was it last year that he subbed in, or the year before? The year before he subbed in for Carolina, and he didn't look great. And then who was number 2 that year?
I'm trying to think of who we were debating on that year with Kyle Allen, and I probably was in those debates, but too many names have come. Where did that player go to school?
That player went to Clemson, and that player was drafted 12th overall in the 2017.
I think Watson was a 4-star.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly it. Kyle Allen was the only 5-star, and then it dropped off to the Deshaun Watson, the number 2 quarterback, was a 4-star. Will Grier was a 4-star, number 3. Keller Christ was number 4, and Gerard Hurd was number 5. Deshaun Kaiser, who ended up going in round 2 of the NFL, was 18th overall. Mason Rudolph went in round 3. He was 20th overall. Patrick Mahomes was the 30th overall quarterback in the 2014 scouting class. That's just one example. Yeah. And it's all over the board. Like Josh Allen was 199th in the
I would be shocked if he even had 3-star. I mean, was he even a star?
He was a 3-star. Daniel Jones was a 0-star in that same class. And
Daniel Jones should have been like a 6th round pick.
he was a walk-on too, so he's almost at that point lucky that he's even in the database.
It's ridiculous.
Right. So Justin Herbert, another fantasy stud right now. He was 43rd overall in the 2016 class. He was a 3-star Oregon. Who was number 1 that year, 2016? 5-star Ole Miss.
Corral.
Shea
He was
Patterson.
a 5-star. Shea. Yep.
Yeah. And Shea Patterson ended up transferring to Michigan after a bit.
And not getting drafted, I don't think.
Eason was number 2, KJ Costello number 3, Malik Henry number 4, Felipe Franks number 5, and then on and on and on down the list. Jalen Hurts was 13th that year. Jordan Love, 1,645. He was a 3-star, and he ended up going in round 1 of the NFL.
My question, I think quarterback makes a lot of sense though, because it's the one, I think, position. I mean, you need football IQ and processing for all these positions, but I think quarterback is the one position where athleticism cannot override the processing. You've got to process, and I don't think you can really know that until the lights come on.
That's true, and you're also at the high school level. With us, we try to watch as much as we can, but the NFL scouting process on quarterbacks is so much deeper. You're watching every full game that guy's ever played. You don't really get that at the high school level. We're watching huddle tape, watching them throw on air. So you try to get full games, but it's difficult. And then it's also difficult to parse out, like even when we were talking about Baron Morton, like what's this guy playing against? At least when you watch Trevor Lawrence's tape and you watch Justin Fields' tape, you know what that competition they're playing against looks like. What are they going against in those games? And at the high school level, it's just really hard to tell. Who are those DBs that they're playing? What kind of windows are they throwing to? Who are their receivers? That kind of stuff, I think, makes it really tough with quarterbacks.
And I think it's also not even what kind of athletes are on the defense, but the schemes in high school, I mean, have to be so simple. You're not having the Alabama defensive coordinator game planning against you in the 3 weeks before the bowl game. It's high school coordinators, high school schemes, probably very vanilla. So I do think it's got to be hard to know what kind of processing is going to happen between the ears when the lights come on and it's, real defense at a collegiate level. And obviously that goes another level at the NFL, but at least you have a decent idea of big time college football.
Well, I think you can look at it from the college standpoint too, of how many colleges miss on these guys. Most of the time, because they're only taking one quarterback a year, but it is also hard to scout those guys. That's why you end up with a Trey Lance at NDSU or a Zach Wilson at BYU. If the system was right, those guys would be at bigger schools. You look at how many MAC quarterbacks are in the NFL and mid-major kind of guys. And I think that's the nature because of the scouting of the nature of scouting that position, and also because colleges can only take one guy most years.
Those are excellent points. And that's the other reason why even in Superflex Devy, it's only about a 6% hit rate on quarterback. You're better off trading the picks for a veteran, a guy that's not so sexy, and keeping strong with NFL players rather than going for Devy quarterbacks. To be honest, you can churn and churn and churn. I've seen some pretty awful rosters just 2 to 3 years after drafting a bunch of quarterbacks and not even one of them hit. It's and you've got to dig deep. You can't just go with the top 5 guys and that's it. If you want to look for a quarterback in Devy, you've got to consider them all.
Yeah, I think that's a good point from some of your research too, is that, just taking that number 1 5-star guy doesn't really pan out at a rate that makes it worth paying that premium in your drafts. So If anyone has any final thoughts on freshmen, I mean, we could have a whole show about freshmen. We do have a couple more things to get to on the sheet. Non-freshmen, 2021 breakouts. Who do you guys have as kind of coming out of nowhere? Maybe real breakout in the mold of like a Javonte Williams, who puts himself in the day 2 conversation in the NFL draft. Obviously, Joe Burrow put himself into the 101 spot after basically a nondescript 4 years in college. Zach Wilson this year. I mean, there's going to be somebody. Who do you have, Allen?
So I think I have the two-headed combination at running back at Western Michigan, and Felix isn't here to shout out Kalamazoo, so I'll throw that in for him. But Ladarius Jefferson, who transferred in from Michigan State, was a great athlete, quarterback in high school. I think a lot of the time converted quarterbacks end up doing well other positions. Sean Tyler is the one that's really intriguing to me, though, because when we look back over the years at running backs that we've missed, like Raheem Mostert is one that we're like, how do we miss that guy? That guy was running like sub 1100 meter times in high school. A lot of the time there is a track time or something there that you could have pointed to at that moment and said, that guy should have been recruited heavier and that guy should have been ranked higher. Sean Tyler ran a 10.68 in the 100 meters his junior year of high school. So we've been burned by not finding those times and ranking those guys higher over the years. We had Sean Tyler ranked pretty highly, and Western Michigan just had a guy with a similar profile in Dwayne Eskridge here who looks like he's going to be drafted, at least seems fairly early this year. I think Sean Tyler has a chance because of that speed to be the next guy to sort of break out of that program.
Very nice. Katie?
I'm going to say Tyler Algier out of BYU. He's a running back. He did have a good season last year, but I still think he's being slept on in Devy, just like Javonte Williams, who had a good year at North Carolina and then followed it up with an even better year. He started off as a 0-star prospect, 5'11", 195, a walk-on at BYU. He is now 5'11", 220, and I think he could be an every down back. He had 1,300 plus scrimmage yards on 164 touches. He's both durable and dynamic. 1,130 of those were rushing yards and ranked him 9th in BYU history, averaging 6.8 yards per carry, which, he's also involved in the passing game. He's a great blocker. And so why the take? He played linebacker versus Boise State. This is how versatile of a player he is. He played linebacker versus Boise State and tore them up. And then later on in the year, he played running back and tore them up again.
Yeah. He was a walk-on linebacker turned running back. I think it's a pretty remarkable story. And I agree. I think it's a nice parallel with Javonte Williams, who actually was good as a sophomore. I mean, he was a little bit on my list, and then I just didn't really jump on it because of the timeshare and all that. But then, he blew it up again. And I think if Algier does it a second time, that's a very nice, I think, parallel with what Javonte Williams did. And all of a sudden, everyone's going to take notice. Allen, how did you guys miss 0-star? What's up?
Before you get to Allen, quick, I call him Heisenberg because everybody needs to know his name.
Fair enough.
Say my name.
So I'm going to guess if he was a 0-star, did he walk on? He has to have been a walk-on.
Yes, he was a walk-on.
Yeah, that's how we try to get to everybody. We don't always make it to those BYU walk-ons though.
I mean, I don't even know. Is he from the mainland? I mean, I know they get recruits from a lot of different places.
Yeah, he went to high school in California at Kaiser, Fontana, California.
He rushed for 22,470 yards as a high school senior. So maybe we should. I'm gonna when this show's done, I'm gonna text our California guy and give him some crap for that.
Yes,
there you go.
That's what we're here to do at the Devy Debate. Yeah, I mean, hey, you're right, though. Like, everybody misses. I mean, Albert Pujols was like a 50th round pick, by the Cardinals or whatever. So it's fun. I mean, I love guys like that. I love the guys that everybody misses and just beat all the odds. For me, I had a guy, and I won't talk too much about him. I'm going to throw the name out there. I think in terms of a breakout is DeMarcus Bowman. but that you guys went much deeper. So I'll have a different answer for the listeners, and that's Donovan Green for Wake Forest. You know, I think a real breakout could be coming, like a big breakout. It would be his third year. He just finished up redshirt freshman year. He's 6'2", about 200 pounds listed. He could probably increase that to 205, 210, which would be a real nice size. He's averaged about 20 yards per receptions in limited time in his first 2 years. And I really thought he was going to be the lead receiver this year, and Jakari Robertson had a great season. But I think there's a chance Green leapfrogs him next year. Robertson's a good player, but he's also going to be like a 5th or 6th year senior. And Green is going to be coming into his redshirt sophomore year. If he pops, I think he could be an early declare. I think, he could be talking about a day 2 pick, probably not first round, but I think a day 2 pick if he really kind of takes a third year leap, which I think is possible. So I think I really like him. Good size. Dynamic player, deep ball threat. I mean, 20 yards per reception. That's 19 as a redshirt. I guess there's freshman year, you had a couple catches, and then 20 this past year. So that's pretty nice. All right, are we ready for the Devy debates?
Yeah,
Ready.
All right. True.
I'm giving my answers in poetry, by the way.
Oh, very nice.
We discussed this the other day, and I will be doing that.
Okay, I can't promise that I will do that. All right. True or false? During the 2021 season, we have a pair of quarterbacks that could mirror Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. Bryce Young and DJ Uiagalelei, I think is how you say it.
Close.
As the number one. Okay, so the question is, true or false? Bryce Young will usurp DJU as the number one quarterback in the class of 2023. Skylar, you have the floor.
All right. I like my players young today and every day. But the number one of 23 is still DJ Uiagalelei.
Oh, I like that. That is clever. Very
the answer is
snappy.
False.
All right, DJU for Katie. Allen.
I agree with her. I think we had Bryce ranked higher, and down the road that could happen. During the 21 season, though, I think Bryce is going to have to prove it more. He doesn't have the physical tools that DJ does, and DJ's already played some last year. So I think it'll take some time for people to come around on Bryce. If he ends up surpassing him, I don't think it'll be this year.
Yeah, I mean, DJU, I've seen him go number one overall in some C2C startup mocks that we've done ahead of, even Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler, and people love DJU. I think his physical tools are incredible. I'm going to go with the legs. Bryce Young is my guy. I just think I look at everything through a fantasy lens, and I think that upside there for me, I would say Bryce Young, and I think we'll see it right away because he'll be ready at Alabama. I mean, they'll have him ready to go week 1. True or false? One of the 2020 freshmen from Ohio State, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Julian Fleming, or Gee Scott Jr. will play more snaps than Jamison Williams, who was the third receiver on the team in 2020. True or false? Katie, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. In football, one of the phrases that comes to mind is never yield. You can take Jamison Williams, and I'll take the field.
Okay. I like that. That's just clever stuff. Allen, what do you think? Will one of these guys jump over Jamison Williams?
Yeah, I can't rhyme like that. I must have, maybe I needed to drink the IPA she was having beforehand to up my rhyming game. But once again, there's no debate here for the second one. I agree. And I think Jamison Williams is a talented player, but he's sort of I think lightning rod flash. Let's make a big play here and there. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba in particular gives you a little bit more polish, maybe at this age, a little bit more consistency. So I see him being the guy that ends up playing the most snaps out of that group.
I agree as well. I think it's JSN myself, so smooth for a pretty big frame. And, I'm not sure he's got breathtaking long speed, but I actually don't really care that much about that for a wide receiver, especially. It's going to be tough, the table scraps after Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. But, Jackson's also returned some punts this past year. And so he was the only one of that group getting on the field. And if you're returning punts, somebody in that coaching staff thinks you're pretty dynamic. So I think it is JSN if it's going to be anybody. True or false, Sam Howell will be the top quarterback taken in the 2022 NFL Draft. Allen, you're up first.
So I'm going to say right now, yes, he's the guy. He's going to be the guy. I'm not counting out the guys behind. I'm not counting out Spencer Rattler by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Sam's done the most at this point to be able to project him as the future number one pick.
Katie?
You invited me on the debate, so I must be a battler. The number one QB in 22 will be Spencer Rattler. So the answer is false. I love
great.
Spencer Rattler. He's got everything, man. He's got the arm. He can throw off platform. Sam Howell is also very good. There's no discounting that. But Rattler is just, his talent is so natural, and he can run enough. He's not a running quarterback. He's a pocket quarterback, but he can run enough. And that's what you want as a dynasty fantasy football asset, and also as an asset as a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm with you on Rattler. He just looks like the ceiling is just out of this world with him. That offense was clunky this year. I don't know what was happening. You know, they lost a lot of receiving talent that they should have had, although Marvin Mims is fantastic. I really like some of the guys they got coming in, Mario Williams and Billy Bowman. I think he can distribute. I think he's a great point guard and just can throw it all over the field. So I'm with you. I think Rattler something about Sam Howell's, I don't know. His arm strength to me is just maybe a tick below where I'd really like to see it. It's just sometimes those balls are a little loopy to me, but follow up.
Sam's got loopy balls. You heard it here first.
Only on the Devy debates. Okay, so who's the QB3? Those we talked about the top two. Who is number 3 in line for that class right now? Allen.
I had two guys that I liked, but I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. I think when we talk about some of the things we just talked about, natural arm talent, athleticism, he's got it. He's going to have starting experience from his true freshman year. He's going to be a 4-year starter there, or 3 if he decides to leave. Adding the weight, that was the question on him. He's still kind of coming around in that part of it, but I think by the time he's draftable, he'll get that part of it figured out. So as far as traits and tools, I think Jaden Daniels is my guy.
Who's going to be the 22 QB3? None other than the QB that's at USC, and that is Kedon Slovis. It's too early to tell, really. I think whoever it is going to need to put together a really good 2021 to separate themselves. The quarterback position, so much can change in one season, and there's about 4 or 5 guys that easily could be considered at that QB3 spot. So at this point, it's just stick a pin in whoever, and I like Slovis.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Slovis. I thought he took a step back, but again, the offense was just clunky. I think it was a little bit of the coaching staff that wasn't very good for him. I would say Desmond Ridder. And I just think he's the kind of guy like Zach Wilson, where, you know, kind of comes out of nowhere, G5 team, but lights it up. He'll now be a senior. If he comes out and goes like 70 plus completion percentage and puts down 500 yards on the ground or something like that, I mean, I just think people are just going to be like, yeah, I mean, some deep people liked him heading into this season. Then he led Cincy to, you know, ranked, and they played Georgia pretty tough in the bowl game. And now he's on a lot of people's radars, and I think you'll see that trajectory continue to go up. And if Slovis doesn't light it up again like he did as a freshman, it's just kind of okay. I don't know. I could see that happening. That's going to be my dark horse. All right, I'm put in charge here of driving the show. I feel like I've allowed a lot of conversation, which I love, but we're going to try to be quick here. Pick one. We're not going to really explain it. We're just going to go. Pick one. George Pickens, David Bell, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson, Katie.
Giving me my pickings of these 4 to buy or sell. I love Burks and Wilson too, but give me David Bell.
Oh, nice. Allen, go.
I'm in agreement. I have David Bell written down.
David Bell's the one I have highlighted. Okay, pick one of the Alabama incoming receivers. Aggie Hall, JoJo Earl, Ja'Cory Brooks, and Christian Leary, all ranked, I believe, in the top 10, maybe top 12 of the composite, which is just insane. Katie, go.
They say that speed kills, though some are getting weary. I love some JoJo Earl, but give me Christian Leary.
Oh, that's got to be an upset. Allen.
We have Ja'Cory Brooks ranked the highest of that crew, so apologies to my 24/7 team for going against their grain here, but I like JoJo Earl. He's my guy.
A lot of people like Earl. I actually did a Twitter poll between the four of those guys, and I think Earl and Brooks exactly tied, despite Earl being a little bit lower. I'm a Ja'Cory Brooks truther. I think he's fantastic. I agree with 247's composite ranking there. Pick one. I'm just going to say pick one of the top 10 running backs. Trevion Henderson, Donovan Edwards, LJ Johnson, Will Shipley, Kamar Wheaton, Amani Goodwin, Evan Pryor, Lavassier Carroll, Trevion Cooley, Kamaro Edmonds. And what you are picking is the closest thing to a first-round NFL pick in 3 years. Katie.
This is not a poem, but every woman favors a Big Johnson. I'm going to take LJ Johnson.
This is a family show.
I'm so well. I said a Johnson.
It's after hours. It's after 10 p.m. It's Adult Swim now. Okay, LJ Johnson. Not a surprise considering her previous pick. Allen, you're up.
This one I will go with our 24/7 rankings on this one and go with Trevion Henderson. Didn't play his senior year, so a little bit tough for him to back up that ranking, but it's going into a great situation. Love everything he brings to the table. Don't sleep on Trevion Cooley, though. I think he could play early and often as well.
Yes, Cooley's another one similar to Devin Neal, where 247 was much higher than the composite, and I agree there. I know Devy Debate host extraordinaire Austin really likes Trevion Cooley as well. I'm going to go with the other Trevion too, though. I mean, I know it's chalk as anything. He's the 5-star, the number one guy, but Trevion Henderson he looks, even compared to other Donovan Edwards, who I think is a 5-star, Henderson just looks like a next level guy to me. So I really like that. And I agree the situation looks pretty ripe right away. Now we have an interesting situation at Ohio State. 5-star Kyle McCord is now going to be competing with CJ Stroud and Jack Miller this year, and then Quinn Ewers is coming down the pipe. And the number one thing I have to say is, why don't these people go to different colleges? I would like to see the talent spread out a little bit more. However, will Kyle McCord ever start a full season for Ohio State? And I think the key word is full season. That means he has to start day one as a freshman and hold off Ewers. So, Katie, what do you think?
I like a good sandwich, a Reuben on a rye of the quarterbacks at the Ohio State. Stroud is my guy. So no, I don't think he will.
Okay, Allen.
I'm going to say yes, he does. I think people are discounting him, but he won 3 state championships in high school. His dad played at a high level. He's also was Marvin Harrison Jr.'s high school quarterback, so they're going to already have that connection coming in. So I think people are writing him off a little bit, but he comes in with some pretty good pedigree here.
I think it's tough to say. I mean, I don't know. Matt Bruning is excited down there. He's been a big McCord guy for the whole cycle here, recruiting cycle. I'm not too impressed with CJ Stroud. I think the key is full season. I mean, that means he's got to hold off, or he's got to come in the gangbusters as a true freshman from week 1, and then hold off Ewers, who, as we all know, is a 1.000 rated composite quarterback, which has only happened like 4 other times or something like that, 5 other times. So, I mean, I just think it's going to be tough. But we shall see. I would bet on the no answer if I had Vegas odds. And some more rapid fire here. Allen, does Texas finish with a 2021 ranking in the top 10 for the NCAA football BCS rankings?
I think top 25, yes. Top 10, no.
Katie?
No.
I say yes, because after the first 4, who really cares? Rondale Moore or Jamar Chase? Katie?
Chase.
Allen?
Chase for me as well.
Make it 3 chases. 2021, the best QB in the Big Ten is. This was actually a lot harder to answer than I thought it would be. Katie, who's the best quarterback in the Big Ten?
I got to say CJ Stroud.
Oh, yeah, you're a Stroud gal. Allen?
Graham Mertz.
Oh, man. Where's Felix? He's going to bust into the chat. Felix, a huge Mertz truther. I was actually going to, maybe this is a little wild card. I was going to say Taulia Tagovailoa. I mean, I think I was looking down all the quarterbacks. I think it's actually between Mertz and Tagovailoa. I think it's shocking how weak the QBs are. It seems. Or my real answer was Quinn Ewers. Can we just say he's the best quarterback already? In 2021, the best QB in the SEC is Allen.
Bryce Young. That's what I'm going with.
Agree. Katie?
JT Daniels. I don't. We'll
No,
see.
sorry. Wait, JT Daniels. Oh, yeah,
Georgia.
for Georgia. Okay.
That's SEC last I checked.
You're right. I was thinking, USC popped into my head, but that's ages ago. Okay, JT Daniels. I think he's the guy if it's not Bryce Young, for sure. Okay, Tank Bigsby or Jahmyr Gibbs? Katie.
I gotta go with my Tank.
Fair enough. This is a tough one. I don't think you can go wrong. Alan.
I love both guys, but I also have Tank.
I like Gibbs, and can you take a small detour here? Why was Gibbs fairly low at kind of all the recruiting services? He saw a late rise, I think, on the services. What happened there? Just fall through the cracks?
Just an under the radar guy. It took a minute to kind of find him and really get him properly scouted. I want to say he may have been recruited as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of, I don't know if we were exactly sure what to do with him for a minute. And the other thing is there are so many good high school prospects in the state of Georgia that we end up finding guys every year that are unrated. They're like, oh, we got to do something about this guy. So glad we ended up getting him in the right spot, but it did take some time.
Yeah, you sure did. I mean, he was a pretty big riser. There were so many people all over Gibbs by the time, August rolled around, but it took a minute for that bowl to get rolling. Hopefully, Gabe Irvin is the next one from Georgia that pops, and I will be able to crown that one myself. So let's see. 2021 Natty champion, Katie.
Alabama.
Alan, are you gonna rock the boat?
I went Clemson.
Okay. All right. I think it's Bama until proven otherwise. I just can't say it's just silliness to do anything else to me. But if it's going to be, that's a sad thing, right? It's Clemson or Bama. And it's like everyone else who cares. That's why I was like, Texas, sure, put them in the top 10. I don't care. After Clemson and Bama, it's just a bunch of people, going 10-2. All right. And then Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. You are guaranteed to make an enemy, however you answer this question. Katie.
Bring on the enemies. I don't care. I'm going to say this loud, proud, and very non-stuttering. Justin Fields.
Alan?
I have Zach, and I'm a Big Ten guy, but I have Zach.
Oh, I think it's Fields still. All right. So thank you so much. We did, I think, get this in under an hour, but it was so fun. I appreciate the Devy guys, Felix, Matt, and Austin for letting us take over the show tonight. You can find our written content at campustocanton.com. All the Devy Debate guys, myself, Jarek Backus, and Colin Decker. Follow the show on @Devy Debate on Twitter. Apologies to Kirk Herbstreit. We ran out of time. We will get him rescheduled soon. For Katie Fowler and Allen Trieu, I'm Alfred Fernandez. Good night and good luck.
Well, hello.
Hi.
We're still live. Is this does Matt cut it off later?
Yeah, he cuts it. I think he already cut it. Like technically, however he does it, like it stops. So then we're just on YouTube or something right now. Or I don't know how he does it, but
sorry,
I
was trying to mess with that. Yeah,
did you hear that? I got a new name.
We're on YouTube and Twitch. We're not on Twitter anymore. Katie,
okay.
I love you. You were amazing. I was laughing the entire time. I thank you so much, Alan. I'm a little upset that you picked Zach Wilson, but I'll look past that for now because
I knew. Somebody was going to be pissed one way or the other. Either Felix was going to disown you or Matt was going to disown you.
You know what? I can't even get mad at him because he picked Kyle McCord, and I have been talking about Kyle McCord forever now. And I sent Felix all kinds of bad text messages as soon as Alan said that.
I realize now the show sheet, I don't know. I somehow deleted letting you guys plug your own stuff. I apologize.
If you go real quick, Allen and Katie, if you guys can do it, and I will put that in at the end of the podcast really quick, because I can go in and put it in after the fact. So if you guys really could just give all your stuff, and then I will plug that in at the end of the podcast before he cuts it out.
Sorry, you got to Band-Aid my hosting.
Sure. So my name is Katie Flower, and you can find me on Twitter at @FF_Skyler399. I am the diva of Devy. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Also, you can find me on Under the Helmet on the weekly and premium podcasts, as well as Off the Rails Dynasty podcast, semi-weekly.
I'm at Allen Trieu on Twitter, ALLENTRIEU. You can find all my work on 247sports.com. And I'm also open to questions on Twitter, unless it's why is my son or nephew or somebody that I know not ranked higher.
Allen, I got to ask, how do you guys, like you said, it's so easy to miss somebody. There's so many players. What is even the process to get started with a class? Like, how do you even whittle it down from, 10,000 to a top 1,000, and then whittle it down even from there? Like, where do you go? Where's that big first filter?
So it's funny that you asked this question, because today I was in meetings all day for us starting the 2023 class, which is high school sophomores. And so what we really do then is, people always ask, like, do you guys rank off of offers? And I say no, but that's the starting point. So the first thing we do is we look at, like, who are the kids that have the offers, and then we watch them and we either decide, well, that's correct, he should have all those offers, or sometimes we go, that looks like a guy that these schools may fall off of, or a guy that we're not really sure, even though he's got these early offers, that they should be way up there. So we start there, and then we have a team that we basically have somebody in every single state, either a team guy or a regional analyst or somebody to then kind of fill in the cracks. So we usually go to them and say, who's the top? It depends on the state. In Florida, you can go 100, 200 deep at this point. In some other states, we may, hey, just give me the top 10 guys in your state.
Wyoming.
So something like that. Or maybe there's one guy in North Dakota.
Do you ever scout Vermont?
Yeah, Carson Wentz made it so that, like, now it's like, give me somebody in North Dakota to look at, just in case we don't miss that guy again.
Yeah.
So from there, we vet it by region and then by position. So this coming week, each one of our analysts has to take a position, and we have to watch basically every guy in the country at that position that has an offer or got put on the watch list by somebody on our staff. And it takes a couple. It's going to be a month-long process. And then we kind of come back on Zooms and touch base every Wednesday to say, this is what I found, or these are the guys that sometimes we'll watch a guy and go, I'm really not sure. And so we'll have the rest of the staff watch at that point. And then sometimes we have a throwdown, like this debate here, and we argue with each other, and or other times we can, nicely come to a consensus.
So then, I guess the stars, is there, we make a big deal about the stars, and obviously everyone loves the release when you're like, oh, the 5 stars are coming out and you're tweeting it all out. I mean, is there a big debate within are people really like championing guys? I want this 5th star for this guy. Like, is it heated?
Oh yeah, it gets a little bit heated, especially the very last. At this point, like, we're not going to argue too hard over high school sophomores, but once you get towards the end of the cycle, and then, like, even right now, I don't know enough about all of these 2023 guys to make a case. But by the time they become seniors, and usually this year it didn't happen, but usually our whole staff has just been at all the all-star games and all the practices and seen all those guys. And so then we can really, everybody's got plenty of ammunition for their viewpoint. And so right now we're really like collecting data too, is like, do we have track times on these guys? Do we have verified 40s anywhere? Do we even have a verified height? Can we even be sure this guy is 6 foot? Right now that's where you're at. By the time these guys are seniors and that final release comes out, we know all that stuff. So that's when it really gets heated, is because that's the last chance to get this right. And it's you don't want to turn on the Super Bowl like we do sometimes and see, like, oh, well, all these 2 stars are playing, and we're all texting each other, like, which one of you missed that one? So you want to get those right for the last time there.
All right, so I got a question from Felix. He's in the middle of recording another podcast, so he posted these in here. He wants to know, Allen, who do you think should be the next hire at that team up north, and why it should be Joe Brady?
Ooh.
Joe Brady is good. The next hire, I will throw. Since we've been going deep sleeper here tonight, I will throw a really kind of deep sleeper your way. Harold Goodwin, who is with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers currently, played at Michigan, coached at Michigan for a time, has all these NFL ties. I think that the combination of him having the NFL success and having coached in the Super Bowl now, having coached Tom Brady, and being an alum, which at Michigan, they haven't gone outside the Michigan man tree too often. That's why he's a name that I would maybe throw out there that maybe a lot of people don't talk about.
I do want to ask your story about Kalamazoo, Katie, but I want to ask Allen one question real quick. How difficult has it been for you guys this past year? And I assume right now as well with COVID and everything, are you guys still able to get out and go see these players in person? Like I know I live in Texas as Katie does, and I'm sure she can tell you the same thing I will. Texas doesn't seem to really believe COVID exists. So they still have been playing games and all this stuff. Like how difficult is it for you guys to kind of scout these players and everything with all of the limitations going on in the world right now?
Yeah, it was difficult at first. I think we've reached a point where we kind of know what we're doing. For a while, it was like, if you're flying into this state, what do you have? Every state has different protocols. So that was the difficult thing. Once we started crossing state lines and some people had to come back and you had to quarantine after you got back from a certain state. So some of that stuff was like nightmares, but we still saw a lot of kids. I think where it got hard for us is when we were debating, like at the end of the cycle, for instance, our number one quarterback was pretty set. But then after that, you had a group of guys where like 3 of those guys didn't play as seniors. So then it was like, what do we do with these guys? We have nothing new to go on, yet the guys behind them have played and played well. There was a pretty heated debate about what to do with the quarterbacks, particularly. We had Drake May and Sam Heward, who didn't play as seniors and were up there as 5 stars.
All right, Katie, I got to hear this Kalamazoo story. I know Felix is listening too, so.
It's nothing at all to do with football.
That's all right.
Even better.
Yeah, even better.
All right. So I was dating and engaged to a professional pool player back in the 90s. And we drove from our house in Columbia, South Carolina, up to Kalamazoo, Michigan for a pool tournament. And he had been such a jerk throughout the entire trip. And I ended up leaving him. I had zero money, but the guy that was at the pool tournament gave me $20 so that I could take a bus to my sister's in Illinois, just north of Chicago. And then from there, I borrowed money from my dad to get money to go back to South Carolina, pack my stuff and move back to Vermont. But it was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and it was a pool tournament. I can't remember the place, but it was a pretty significant professional pool tournament. It was just kind of funny.
What's that movie? Is it Color of Money or something?
And he was in that. He was actually in that movie.
Wow.
What?
He was in that movie.
No way. Oh, that's
for real. He was the guy that taught Tom Cruise and the others how to play pool enough to make it look like they knew what they were doing for the scenes. And then he was also a gambler in the movie. He had just a very bit part. He got to order the Drambuie on the rocks.
That's amazing. I love that. That's great. It's a good movie.
Austin, Did you have any questions? I feel like we always skip, or you always just sit there so quietly.
I just soak it all in. I sit here quietly and got to learn. You got to know your opponent better than yourself or whatever. Isn't that what they say? So
that is what
that's what I'm doing.
Well, if Austin's not going to say it, I will.
Oh yeah, Alfred just texted me. He didn't want to take the heat for asking what's up with Caleb Williams, because I think a lot of people don't. We like the people that do this like in the fantasy circles don't really like Caleb Williams that much.
Yeah, and that's a guy that was polarizing within our staff. Not everybody on our staff thought he should be number one. I will say this: when they were all side by side, and I was down there in Orlando when all the top quarterbacks were throwing side by side, he was the best in that setting. I think we've kind of that a little bit of a tougher evaluation on him too, because I don't think he quite had I don't want to say the upbringing, but like he didn't have as much like private quarterback tutoring and all this stuff. And that's, we talked about where it's difficult to evaluate quarterbacks. And that stuff gets really tough at the high school level. If a kid happens to live somewhere where he can train, or this family has the means to train and other kids don't, or just don't have the time because they play other sports or whatever, we've ended up overrating a lot of guys who are a little more polished because of that. And I think with Caleb, we saw the upside because of his arm, but he's not a guy that I would say, like, over the years, our number one quarterbacks, obviously like Trevor Lawrence, you felt really good about it. I don't think we quite have the same level of confidence with putting Caleb number one, but I think he kind of still won the vote at the end of the day. And like I said, it was hard because the two guys who were nipping at his heels didn't play as seniors, so we weren't really in a position to move those guys.
Very interesting. Yeah, I like that. Hey, go ahead.
Tamorian Terry was a 3-star, and a lot of that was he was working on the farm. He never went to the camps. He had a lot of dripping upside, but he wasn't as well known as some of the other prospects, I'm sure, and that's because he never got to attend the camps and get out there.
I think DeMarcus Robinson, who went to Florida, carved out a nice little collegiate career, and now is obviously stuck on the world champion Kansas City Chiefs for a number of years, was a similar thing. He grew up in kind of nowhere, Georgia. I think he ended up a 4-star, I believe, but he was like one of those guys who was like no camps, didn't get to travel around and showcase everything. I always wonder about that. How much do camps, this is another good question. How much does camps and being able to go see these guys in person, granted it's on air basically, but how much does the camps, attending the camps, seeing that face over and over and over again, either consciously or even subconsciously, make people feel better about ranking them higher?
And I think sometimes it can go the other way too, where you see a guy so much that you over evaluate them, where if you're just watching, like if I'm just watching a kid's highlight tape, I'm only seeing his best. But if another kid is showing up and we're watching all of these reps at every camp, we're watching every ball he throws, we're going to see some hit the ground. And so we try not to let it bias us too much one way or the other. And I know that there's the perception out there that if kids don't attend camps and they won't get ranked as high, but that's not necessarily true. The camps help us when there's something that we feel is missing from the high school tape, something that we can't see. For instance, if a kid is just playing quarterback at his high school because he's the best athlete, so they put him there, but he's going to play something else, the camps allow us to see, well, what does that guy's ball skills look like? What does he look like when he's changing directions and doing things other than taking a snap and throwing the football? We mentioned the difficulty in figuring out what the level of competition is like and finding like a balance, and camps allow you to see these guys side by side. And even though it is on air and it is shorts and t-shirts, you at least kind of see, like, does this guy physically belong with this group? Is he competing with this group? But I do think that is difficult. If you look over the years at basketball recruiting rankings, they're way more accurate than football. And I would never let our basketball guys hear me say that, but it's because when they're going around in the summer and they're watching AAU, they're watching games, they're watching them play. They're not watching shooting drills and trying to rank guys off of that. We are basically doing that. So I think over the years we've figured out like what matters and what doesn't. But sometimes I think you can be fooled a little bit by the camp setting.
Yeah, and baseball actually the same way. You can see live pitcher versus hitter in baseball as well. And football is the only one you can't really get live. Even the All-Star game, weeks it's not live. It's not like truly full speed, right?
No, and they go. They do a lot of one. It's almost like when you watch Senior Bowl practice. It's kind of like it's very similarly structured to that. But then in those cases, like those guys have been prepping for the Senior Bowl. The high school kids, sometimes their high school, if their team didn't make the playoffs, they haven't played football since November. They've moved on to, some of those kids play basketball and they come back just to play. So you never really know what that kid's been doing. Some of those kids sit around and eat over the holidays too. So you don't really know what you're getting by the time they show up to one of those things.
man.
Who's an underrated 2022 wide receiver? Who's someone we should be looking at that maybe we're not talking about?
He's a 4-star, but I would say right in my neck of the woods, Antonio Gates Jr. That's going to be a name a lot of people recognize. Yeah.
Oh,
he's coming up the pipe, and he, like I said, he's a 4-star, but he's not a high 4-star. So unless you're really like digging into that list, maybe that's not a name you've come across.
That guy right there, right below me.
Yeah.
That dude's like going through like 2 stars and everything.
I really appreciate people who do that. I mean, it helps keep this roof over my head, people who are digging that deep. So no, but he's a really good prospect, about 6'2", 6'3". Not going to be a tight end like his dad, but he's definitely passed down some pretty good genes there.
You said he's going to play receiver?
Yeah, he's about 190. He's a big kid, but not so big that he's going to outgrow a wide receiver.
You have a basketball background like his dad? They're going to talk about that during every game.
I don't care unless he has a basketball background.
I don't think he plays basketball, so maybe he didn't want to have to do the whole like go play MAC basketball and turn around and come back and try to make the NFL. He's just going to take the direct football route.
That's fair enough.
Sorry, I'm replying to Felix.
Felix didn't apparently hear us ask that question. He's really on us. He's like, ask him who Michigan's next coach is going to be. We're like, dude, we asked like 20 minutes ago. I don't know where you were, but.
Okay, we got a question from the audience here. FF Boz wants to know.
Boz is a good friend of the show.
Oh, yeah, definitely friend of the show. Is there a player in this class you personally, Allen, were pushing to be higher that you got shut down?
I don't know if I really got shut down. We just couldn't find room. I loved this guy named Trevin Wallace out of Georgia, who I think was committed to Boston College at the time and ended up switching
linebacker,
going to Kentucky. Yeah, linebacker, extremely athletic. And we couldn't find room. He was like about to make it, and then Donovan Edwards went on this huge tear at the end of the year, and Donovan Edwards was not a sure thing to make it, but then we were like, he should make it, like off of what he did. But before all that started, it was like we were down to like the last 5 spots, and I think we had about 12 guys that we all liked. And Trevor,
are you talking about making the 5-star cutoff?
Yeah, 32 is the 5-star cutoff for us.
Okay, yeah, I was about to ask that. So,
is there a set number, or is there it just some years you may have more 5 stars and some years you may have less? Whoever is worthy.
32 is always going to be the cutoff for 5 because of 32 first rounders. So we just made it correlate instead of like just you drawing an arbitrary line. When I was at Scout, it was at 50, and people used to say, "Well, that's too many, and why is it 50?" And we didn't really have an answer. So at least 32, it correlates to something. The 4 stars don't cut off anywhere, though. We just try to not go crazy because, I mean, it would be easy to try to think like we can stack the. Let's just make everybody a 4-star, and we can say we were right about everybody. So we just try to not go crazy on those and cut those off at some point.
I always thought Scout was too generous, so that makes sense.
We were, but then at the end of the day, there were like, I don't know if this is even documented anywhere, but Scout was the only service that had Mahomes as a 4. So I think some of
claim to fame
helped us. I think we were the only ones that had Devontae Parker as a 4 when he went in the first round. Darren Lee, Scout was the only one. So we've had a couple good hits, and maybe the extra padding helped us out a little bit there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be wrong if everyone's a 5-star.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's we have to cut off 3 stars too, because that's the real temptation on our team is like every guy that signs with a Power 5 school, let's make him a 3-star. Every guy that we like that's going to a G5 school, let's make them, at some point it's like we got to cut something off. That's a huge debate within our staff of it's like, where do you draw the line between 3 and 2? That's almost more difficult than drawing the line between 5 and 4 or 4 and 3.
Yeah, I've noticed. I mean, the 3 stars seem kind of endless. I mean, I'm sure you can get to the 2s, but I'm sure you've increased the amount of scouting and ranked players and the players stuff about over the last decade.
Yeah, that's really the difficulty of it is we do know so much more about them. We see them so much more. Like for instance, the Watt brothers, that's one that they're the most famous. Like JJ Watt was a 2-star. Like I'm not sure anybody on any recruiting site staff ever saw JJ Watt in person. And you were also at the mercy of that time, of, will this kid in Pewaukee, Wisconsin, put a DVD in the mail and send it to you so you could see him? There was no huddle.
Wow.
There was no anything. Now we can really, like, I remember, so Jalen Smith's older brother, Rod, it was like when I got his DVD in the mail, it was like a Christmas present. I was like, we're finally going to get to see this guy that we've heard so much stuff about. Can't rank him because we don't know anything about him. And I was so happy that somebody finally mailed me the DVD. Now we watch so many more guys that it's almost like, how do you talk yourself out of, and they're all the best players at the high school. So it's like, how do you talk yourself out of not liking 2,000 guys? You can make a case for all of these guys if you watch the right couple plays, you know?
Yeah.
How long have you been at 247?
So I've been with 247, bought Scout like 4 or 5 years. I think it was almost 5 years ago now. So, but I've been with the company that has become merged in with 24/7 for, this is like 15, 16 years. I think I started my freshman year of college. I was interning.
How much has it changed from then to now? Because so Austin, I know, has been like paying attention to this stuff a lot longer than I have. I've only been like really paying attention to 247 for probably the last 4 or 5 years. So, and I mean, Austin digs, like I said, he digs much deeper into it than I do. At some point, I'm just like, I got to stop. Austin will bring up like 2 stars and all this stuff. Him and Colin, they do an amazing job with that stuff. Like how much has that changed though? I know you're just talking about the DVD stuff. Like, has fantasy or just how much more we seem to value college football changed for you guys in the way you're able to scout? And do you guys see a difference in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much bigger than I ever thought it would. Like when I told my parents I was like not going to go to law school and I was going to write about college football on the internet, like, what are you talking about? They're like, nobody would ever have thought that it would have gotten to this point. And I was a draft junkie well before that. So I actually remember when the draft was kind of this underground thing. And then all of a sudden now there's like red carpets and they're talking about bringing guys in on boats and whatnot. And like, the same things kind of happen with recruiting, and it's really helped us. I mean, we're so much more visible, and so we're able to track down so much more information, and people are willing to send us things. Like I said, throughout the pandemic, if we needed something, kids were self-shooting workout videos and sending them to us. And so I think the amount of information we have and the number of eyeballs that is following it, it's so much bigger than I ever expected. Now, from that standpoint, we have to try to not let that influence us too much, because there's so many more fans telling us like, hey, you guys are wrong about this. Why aren't you looking at this? Why, and we have to try not to let that influence us too much, even from the standpoint of like the kids now are so interactive with us. Why am I not ranked higher? I beat this guy in a game. I can send you a clip of me against this guy in a camp. I should be higher than him. That's going on behind the scenes all the time. And so that didn't used to happen. When I started, that never happened. So that's something that we have to deal with and try to, like I said, not let ourselves get pulled in certain directions because certain people are more interactive with us than others.
Well, you definitely took the right route, skipping the law school for the internet writing, because I did the law school and now I'd rather do the internet writing. So I think you made a good choice there on that one.
My wife's a paralegal and she tells me every day when I'm working from home and she's leaving the house, she's like, you did the right thing. So I appreciate the extra backup there too, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to hop off here soon.
Yeah, same deal for me. It's almost 11 here, and I've got 2 kids myself, so I know they're going to be up early.
Oh boy, yeah. I just had to go take care of one who woke up and was crying.
I can hear upstairs. I already think I heard my wife upstairs going and walking into our daughter's room.
You can hear them scattering around like little mice.
Yeah, so I think I got the bed to myself now.
I guess that's somewhat good. Yeah, we can end it. My kids are running around. My wife's about to be home any minute. She's going to murder me when she sees that our kids are still up. So